Everybody say, everything I have, no other choice.
It was confusing, but when I learned what was going on, I was better able to work through the postpartum and the depression and stuff like that. And so,
ever wonder what it takes to stay in a marriage after it has been publicly torn open, dissected by bloggers, and handed back to you in pieces? Shante Tribbett did not just survive one of the most humiliating public scandals in gospel music history. She rebuilt herself from the inside, repaired a marriage that two affairs had nearly destroyed, and turned her own wreckage into a ministry that now reaches thousands of women every year. The woman behind the man behind the Grammy is a story that gospel music almost never told, but it is the only story worth knowing. Shante Tribbett was born on May 1st, 1979 in Camden, New Jersey, to a mother who was 16 years old at the time. Camden is one of the most economically distressed cities in the United States, and growing up there with a teenage mother and no biological father in the home shaped Shante in ways she has spent her adult life unpacking.
I feel like I grew up in fear because my father and my mother were not married when they had me. And so I was born out of wedlock.
And she was 16.
Yeah, and my mom was 16 when she had me. And I always knew that God loved me, but I didn't think he liked me because I didn't come his way. You know, he ordained marriage, and I knew that, and I understood that, and I understood why I was going through so many things because my parents wasn't married.
The absence of a father did not leave a small wound. It left a structural gap, the kind that shapes a child's sense of whether they belong, whether they are worth staying for, whether love is something that can actually be counted on. She developed what people around her described as a quiet, reserved personality. But the silence was not peace. It was the learned behavior of a girl who had not yet been shown that she was worth claiming.
And so my identity would just lie in the person who would make me feel most comfortable. And so that's what happened. So it doesn't start from our adulthood or marriage. It starts from childhood and how we think about ourselves and how we developed.
Camden in the late 1980s and early 1990s was the kind of place that could either harden you or break you. Shante was neither, but the emotional work of growing up fatherless in that environment set the interior conditions for every relationship and every crisis that would follow. She found her way to church, and the church found its way into her. Faith became the scaffolding that her home life had not provided. It gave her language for pain she did not yet have the tools to name. In 1995, at 16 years old, Shante met a young man named Thomas Tyrone Tribbett, who went by Ty. He was 19, a Camden native, and already consumed by a vision for music ministry that had been forming in him since the age of 5, when he first learned to play keys in his church. Ty came from a different kind of family. His father was a bishop, his mother a minister and disc jockey in the Philadelphia and New York area. He had grown up surrounded by structure, purpose, and musical discipline. The contrast between their backgrounds was significant, but what they shared was faith and a pull toward each other that neither of them seemed able to explain away. After a 2-year courtship, Shante and Ty married on December 6th, 1997. She was still in high school.
I was 19, and when we got married at 21, I remember several people don't do that to her. Don't marry shit. You were still in high school. We went on the prom together.
We did married on the
married
prom.
on your prom.
We were.
And so people were like, don't do that to her. You're taking her life from her. Let her have her college years. Let her live a little. And I'm like, what about me? I'm 20.
Right. Right.
But about the life, I'm losing. So we didn't know much. We were kids, but we knew God called us together.
The following year, even as she settled into the responsibilities of marriage, she obtained her commercial baker's license, a quiet act of ambition that the people around her likely did not register as significant at the time. She was barely 18 and already building, already trying to establish a self that existed beyond the role she had just taken on as a pastor's wife. The same year they married, Ty's ensemble, Greater Anointing, entered and won the Wrigley's Gospel Choir competition at both the regional and national levels. The momentum was undeniable. In 1998, Grammy-winning producers Buster and Shivani heard them and brought Greater Anointing onto the soundtrack for DreamWorks' animated film The Prince of Egypt, performing Let Go, Let God, alongside Mary Mary. That single moment cracked the mainstream open. Ty Tribbett and GA were no longer just a Camden choir. They were a national proposition. Between 1999 and 2005, Greater Anointing shared stages with some of the most recognized names in American popular music, including Faith Hill, Jill Scott, Elton John, Luther Vandross, Stevie Wonder, Usher, and Justin Timberlake, whose 2002 triple platinum album, Justified, featured GA on the hit Cry Me a River.
Cry me a river. Oh, cry me a river.
Shante was right there through all of it, moving from city to city, from church to arena, as her husband's platform expanded at a speed that left little room to breathe. She was a young wife and then a young mother, raising their first daughter, Austin Taylor, while the machine around her husband kept accelerating. The group's studio debut album and their first 2 full live recordings, Life in 2004, and Victory Live in 2006,
Now it's time to celebrate, all banners raised.
both hit #1 on the Billboard Gospel Albums chart. Stand Out followed in 2008 with the same results.
Stand up. Hey, be not conformed to this world.
4 consecutive #1 gospel albums. By any measure, Ty Tribbett and Greater Anointing had become one of the defining forces in contemporary gospel music. Shante was the woman behind the operation, co-leading the ministry, raising their children, and holding the household together while her husband became a phenomenon. But something was breaking in private. In May 2009, Shante discovered that Ty had been having an extramarital affair. The woman was a member of Greater Anointing itself, a woman who had previously had a child by another member of the same choir. The detail was not incidental. The affair had unfolded inside the community they had built together, among the very people who sang every Sunday about faithfulness and grace. Ty later confirmed in a 2010 Associated Press interview that the relationship had started as a joint counseling situation with the woman and had escalated past the point of recovery into something between him and her alone. He admitted it had gotten out of control on Mother's Day weekend. The timing carried its own cruelty. The woman who had married at 17 moved through every city her husband's career demanded and quietly built a life around a ministry that preached covenant and integrity, found out on one of the most symbolically loaded weekends of the year that the covenant had already been broken without her knowledge. What was decided next made the situation exponentially more complicated. Because Ty and Shante were still attempting to navigate the fallout, it was agreed that someone close to them, a trusted minister and friend, would step in to counsel the couple.
The man chosen was Emmanuel Lee Lambert Jr., a Christian rapper who performed under the name The Truth.
Lambert was Ty's close friend and professional collaborator, signed to Cross Movement Records, a respected voice in Christian hip-hop. He was also married. He was given access to Shante at one of the most vulnerable moments of her life, when her marriage had just been shattered and she was being asked to process it with the man she trusted. The counseling did not produce healing. It produced a second affair. The Truth began a sexual relationship with Shante. Cross Movement Records suspended Lambert indefinitely when the affair became public in November 2009, and he issued a statement announcing a sabbatical from music ministry due to immoral indiscretion in his personal life without naming specifics. But the gospel world had already connected the dots. The story that Ty Tribbett had cheated on his wife with a choir member and that the man brought in to counsel them had then slept with Ty's wife spread through every gospel blog, every church hallway, and every radio show that covered the genre. Both The Truth and his wife eventually reconciled and held a recommitment ceremony on their 8th wedding anniversary in June 2010. Ty and Shante's path to reconciliation was longer, harder, and conducted entirely without the benefits of the public goodwill that the Christian community typically extends only to the man who confesses first. The judgment that fell on Shante was of a particular and familiar shape. Ty had cheated first. The counselor chosen to repair the damage had exploited her vulnerability, and yet the dominant narrative in many circles treated her affair as the more shocking event, as if a woman's retaliation to betrayal was categorically more offensive than the original sin that caused it.
She has spoken publicly about the shame of that period, about having to stand in ministry spaces, knowing what people were saying, knowing she had no clean story to tell because her own hands were not clean, even though the context for her choices was a grief she had not created. They separated. For a time, the marriage appeared to be over, but both Ty and Shante chose to stay. Counseling, accountability, and a sustained commitment to the faith that had defined both of their lives brought them back to each other. Shante has described the process as a renovation, a word she would eventually use to frame an entire book and movement around the necessity of tearing down old structures in order to build something stronger. The marriage did not simply survive. It was dismantled and reconstructed. Daughter Lincoln Victoria Tribbett arrived to a family that had been through the fire and decided to stay anyway. In 2010, Ty released his first solo album, Fresh, which debuted at #1 on the Billboard Gospel Albums chart. Shante was rebuilding her own identity at the same time, finding that years spent as the supporting structure for someone else's platform had left her own purpose undefined and underdeveloped. The grief of the marriage crisis had actually accelerated a question she might have taken years longer to face. Who was Shante Tribbett when no one was asking her to hold something for someone else? In 2013, Ty released Greater Than on Motown Gospel, the album that produced If He Did It Before, Same God,
If they did it before,
which spent 17 weeks at #1 on the Gospel Airplay chart and became one of the most recognized gospel songs of its era. At the 2014 Grammy Awards, Ty won 2 awards, Best Gospel Album and Best Gospel Song.
The Grammy goes to Shante Tribbett.
He was no longer just a gospel figure. He was one of the most awarded artists in the genre's history. And standing beside all of it was the woman who had chosen to stay when leaving would have been completely defensible. In 2017, Ty and Shante co-founded Live Church in Orlando, Florida. The move represented a new chapter in every dimension. They had relocated from New Jersey to the South, built a local congregation from scratch, and committed to a church community that they would pastor together. Shante took on leadership of the women's ministry and developed the You Grow Girl movement, a platform of seminars, roundtable conversations, and life coaching sessions designed to help women grow spiritually, emotionally, and practically. The name was deliberately unpretentious. It was about growth, not performance. She also launched The Trend, a home design and decor boutique, an extension of her gifts in aesthetics and her interest in building beautiful spaces, literal and otherwise. The enterprise reflected something she had been cultivating quietly for years, a sensibility about the relationship between physical environment and inner life that would eventually inform her broader coaching work. In October 2020, Shante published Renovate, a 40-day devotional journal to renew the mind. The book was not a vague inspirational text. It was specific, rooted in the actual 40-day journey she had undertaken to dismantle the belief systems that have formed in her during childhood and been reinforced by everything that followed. In December 2022, Ty and Shante quietly celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary, 25 years from a December ceremony that happened while Shante was still in high school, through the Grammy campaigns and the choir competitions and the Faith Hill tours and the double betrayal in 2009 and the separation and the counseling and the return and the children and the church plant and the book and the boutique and the ministry. 25 years. By 2023, Ty released All Things New Live in Orlando, a live recording that captured Live Church in full, with Shante visible as a constant presence in the ministry she had helped build. In 2024, he earned another Grammy nomination for Best Gospel Album for All Things New, with the win coming at the 66th Grammy Awards.
Thank you to the Academy, to Motown, to Locks Entertainment, to Live Church, to everyone, every singer and musician who has something to do with this, to my wife. So use your God-given gift to bless somebody. God bless y'all.
The You Grow Girl movement continued expanding through conferences and digital programming. Shante's Instagram platform, reflecting her work in ministry, life coaching, and home design, had grown to over 60,000 followers, a modest number by celebrity standards, but a significant one for a woman whose platform is built entirely on depth of relationship rather than volume of content. The girl born in Camden in 1979 to a 16-year-old mother with no father in the room has not forgotten where she started. She has simply decided that where she started is exactly the reason she's qualified to speak. As of 2026, Shante Tribbett's net worth is estimated at approximately $1 million, built across her pastoral ministry at Live Church Orlando, her life coaching practice, speaking engagements under the You Grow Girl brand, her devotional book Renovate, and the Trend Boutique. Her husband, Ty Tribbett's net worth is estimated at approximately $4 million, giving the family a combined standing built on decades of Grammy-winning gospel artistry and independent church ministry. Neither number captures the weight of what it took to get here. The real accounting is the marriage that should have ended in 2009 and did not, the two daughters watching their parents choose each other again, and the thousands of women who have sat in a You Grow Girls session and heard a woman who knows what it costs to stay. If this story gripped you, drop your biggest takeaway below. What moment hit different? For more unfiltered journeys, hit that bell.